Alrighty, very, very, very happy Wednesday and welcome to the TNC Sports Talk. My name is Justin. Today is June 3rd of 2026. And on today's episode, we will be getting you guys ready for the rubber game matchup as the Royals take on the Reds later this afternoon. We got a lot of sports conversations to get down into it, and I kind of just want to kick off the program by talking to you about the trade that was done on Monday with the Los Angeles Rams, who picked up edge rusher Miles Garrett from the Cleveland Browns. I wanted to revisit this conversation for a particular reason. Um, Now, I shared, I believe, yesterday how this kind of acts as a relief almost for the AFC North and for specifically the Cincinnati Bengals. I believe that the Bengals are kind of getting off the hook a little bit when it comes down to facing their division's rivals this season. I don't know about you, but Miles Garrett has opposed to be a legitimate threat every time Joe Burrow and this Bengals offense steps foot uh, against the Cleveland Browns. But it's important to remember now that Miles Garrett is no longer not only in the AFC in the AFC North, but he's no longer in the AFC. So I personally can really just sit back and like this trade. Okay. I believe it doesn't really do much to me other than possibly add another W to the Bengals schedule as we look through it and predict how many games the Bengals are going to win. It helps our offensive line in a division that I was arguably going to pronounce here on this show that this is probably, if not the best division in all of football, has now shifted to not the best division in all of football. I think, and this is just me, this the shakeup over the last 48 hours. I believe that the NFC West has resurgence its chance, and we're going to talk about the NFC West and what does this do to the division? Is this the right trade for for the Rams here? But when I a couple weeks ago, following the NFL draft, I said that the AFC North was going to be very competitive. You have the Browns who drafted a lot of offense, and now you have Deshaun Watson and Shador Sanders in competition of who's going to start the season. I think that's a good good competition to have. You used to have Miles Garrett, which just elevated the Browns defense. Now without him, yeah, you have Jared Verse. He was a rookie of the year back in 2024. He's just not as elevated as Miles Garrett, but he has a lot of great potential. So I'm interested to see how impactful he's going to be on this Browns defense. And I think that's the only uncertainty is because we aren't sure who he is, and we haven't legitimately faced him. Particularly, he's going into Cleveland. He has this opportunity to be this shining idol for their defense, and so yeah, we just don't know. Where in Miles Garrett, you know what you're getting out of him. That's just the Brown side of the thing. You have along Aaron Rodgers returning back to Pittsburgh, along with the additions that the Steelers have made. They're notorious for a defensive front unit. The Ravens have shown interest in not only picking up Jesse Minter, but also picking up Trey Hendrickson this offseason. They've done their due diligence proclaiming that, hey, this team is wanting to win and win now. And then the Bengals, who have done their due diligence as well, picking up several defensive pieces, added a couple of offensive power, a strong front between Jamar Chase and Chase Higgins. We'll have this conversation at the end of the program today. But without Miles Garrett, it kind of bumps down the AFC North a little bit. My opinion. The team right now that has, for me, shown a lot of interest in the division wise has to be the AFC West. I feel like you have four suitable quarterbacks, and if Fernando Mendoza starts and he could be as good as they say he could be, I think that the AFC West is going to present a threat to all of football, especially if Patrick Mahomes could have a bounce back year. But the Rams on this side, picking up Miles Garrett, and all those trades, all right, I don't think it's anything pretty. It's nothing special for the Browns to brag about, but it's the first round pick next season. It's the second round pick in 2028. And it's the third round pick in 2029. I mentioned yesterday that this deal reminded me a whole lot on the Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff a few years back. The Rams ran out, picked up Jalen Ramsey on defense, traded Matthew Stafford, or Jared Goff from Matthew Stafford, put all of their chips into the center of the table, say, look, we are going to bet our future so we can win now. And what did they do? They went out and they picked up a Super Bowl victory over the Bengals. It worked. The follow-up question to that came from the understanding of how good they were following that Super Bowl win. Now, they haven't been back to the Super Bowl, but they've still been a top team in the NFC alone in recent years. Last year, they lost to the Seattle Seahawks, a team in their division that probably had no rhyme or reasons to be in the playoffs last season, but they did. Okay, they had no reason to be as good as they were, but they were. And so the Rams, and I'm speaking here from the East Coast, are asking themselves, well, how can we be better? What is that blockbuster deal to stand out and separate ourselves from everyone else? And they believe by adding Miles Garrett, they have done so. So the question is, it's not the question. It is the Rams have once again put all their chips into one pot. All right, we're at the craps table here, or the poker table. We're at the poker table. We traded in our cards and we got new ones. We like the ones that are dealt. We kind of were able to card count here, and we believe we have a royal flush heading into this season. It's bold letters here. Okay, the Rams are Super Bowl or bust. Matthew Stafford is getting older. This offensive team is very strong, very elegant, and they added a key component to their defense, as which that's what they believe is going to send them over the edge. They believe that they're strong enough offensively, that they've added a very big, bold move in Miles Garrett defensively, and that is what's going to catapult them beyond the Seahawks, beyond the Eagles, into this year's Super Bowl. We're only going to time and tell. Now, remember this last time, everybody was saying, you know what, this is not going to work. They're going to fall flat. They're going to utterly fail, and we are not going to see them in the Super Bowl. Matter of fact, they're going to be the worst team in the NFL overall. And you look at what the outcome is. Do we? They are doubling down. And regardless if you're a fan of the Rams or not, and I get it. If you're the Seahawks fans, you don't like it. If you're the 49ers fans, I'm sure somewhere in left field, Kyle Shanahan is complaining. And if Arizona is just like, man, let's just give up before the season starts. But if you're just a fan of football, you're asking yourself, are you going to double down on the Rams in their recent move to go back to the Super Bowl? And if your answer is yes, then let's join the club. Welcome in. But this is a big deal because we saw it work once, and I feel like a lot of that had to do with luck. Yet we see it again. Uh, can they bounce back twice on it? Now, the other thing that accumulated the past 48 hours in the NFL was AJ Brown going to the New England Patriots. And I feel like this kind of goes over our heads because of the magnitude of the trade between the Rams and the Browns. But what I'm wanting to point out here is that the Rams, I don't know what chances they had, if they had any at all, but just entertain my imagination for a second to see the Rams, instead of getting Miles Garrett, they added AJ Brown to their offense in combination of Puka Nakua. And just for a moment, what is that better decision? If in Fantasyland, instead of Miles Garrett, the Rams picked up AJ Brown, would have they been a better squad? I think this could be a safeguard, and I'm okay with the Rams taking this safeguard to its fullest by capturing one of the best defensive players in the NFL to coincide with your offense that is already talented. Instead of adding another receiver, which could always be beneficial, this helps balances the team overall. And this helps on the offensive side, which they're nice and secure and they're focused on, and their defensive side. So I don't think that this is a bad idea, and maybe speculations of the what ifs will be ever unknown if we would have went with AJ Brown instead. I think AJ Brown with the Patriots fit is a much better adequate solution. Is kind of I think with the Patriots he can, for me, get that spotlight, that attention. Their offense can kind of focus on delivering the ball to him more. Where in Los Angeles, you're going to have to worry about. I feel like you have too much to worry about with AJ Brown, because he's not your pupil. He's not your prized possession on the team. He would be going up. He's second best, and I feel like just to me, he wants to be first best. So I really like this deal. I think it's a win. Now, I can see here and, jump in, a field of flowers and say that this is a win deal. They're going to the Super Bowl, but it really doesn't mean nothing until they show it out there on the field. I'm going to be honest. The Rams are in my top 3 to go back to go to the Super Bowl this year to be very successful. But just because you have the names, you got to have the performance on the field. I found this quite funny. Just entertaining the idea. Immediately following this trade, we see some speculation, some rumors for Aaron Darnold to return. He retired shortly after the Super Bowl season, and he's showing interest, possibly wanting to return on CBS Sports. Aaron Donald spoke with multiple people on Tuesday and said that, look, a return could be on the table. He said, and I quote, "It's for sure got me thinking. 35, removed 2 years ago. Got to see if this fire can light it back up." Um, I wouldn't be surprised if Aaron Donald thinks he could play. I don't think you have to use him on a full term basis. But if you think he could play and you could think he could benefit this squad, he's 35. He's going to take up a spot on the 53 man roster. He's not going to be playing every snap, but he can be a pose a threat. If he's still physically capable of going, just the name alone, being out there on the field, can pose a threat. And, you know, I don't know. He goes on to say that, and I quote, "I'm for sure flirting with the idea, haluva, an opportunity with the Super Bowl and SoFi this year. If I can find the fire, it's a possibility." If the Rams are going to make this deal, I don't know what the contract's going to look at. I'm assuming it's going to be more favorable to a team contract. He's doing it under, despite of playing with Miles Garrett, having that extra protection. Look, I mean, I'm opposed to it. I'm not trying to be a biased opinion. As much as I love Aaron Donald, as much as I think he's a future Hall of Famer in my books, I'm not opposed. I'm opposed to him returning under the right conditions. He doesn't even have to return to start the season. I just think that this would definitely elevate the team. Now, it does his return say, "Hey, the Super Bowl's in set"? No, not absolutely not. But there is a great conversation there. So, what do you guys think? First of all, do you think that this Miles Garrett deal was a really good deal, or do you think that the Rams could have and should have gotten a better deal with somebody else? Or do you think they should have just stuck with Jared Verse? The second question I'd ask you is, if the opportunity presents itself, would you be inclined seeing a a retired 2 year retired veteran make his return to the game to play alongside with Miles Garrett? Let me know down in the comments below. That's what we're opening up our conversations with here. It's not a bad deal. All right. Well, last night we'll get some Reds conversation into play as the Cincinnati Reds picked up a 4-3 victory in yesterday's ball game, splitting the series with the Royals. Andrew Abbott went 6 innings, giving up 5 hits, 3 runs, 4 walks, and 5 strikeouts. Spencer Steer, to me, was the player of the game. When offense was not budging, our pitching kept the Reds in the game. Spencer Steer in the 5th inning had a solo blast to left field, put the Reds on board. In the bottom of the 8th inning, he comes back and delivers an opposite home run to put the Reds down by 1. Will Benson comes off the bench last night in the 9th inning, hits a solo home run to tie the ball game, and now it's 3-3. Couple of walks are drawn. Spencer Steer comes back up. Maybe he could have a 3-peat, ends up striking out swinging. They go into extra innings. I'm kind of kicking myself saying, oh no, here's extra innings. Well, they get out of the top half of the frame and the bottom half with Spencer Steer on second, TJ Friedel out, Blake Dunn comes to bat. Excuse me. And what? Gosh. It walks things off with a single to right field. Reds took on the victory, and I'm just thinking to myself, you know, with everything that's bad, I told you yesterday what we need to do to win. We're breaking it down slowly. 2 goals right now. One, win the series, and we have kept ourselves alive with a win yesterday. 2 is finish off this homestand, which ends today, by the way, with a 500 or better record. That's the best what we could do, okay? And we could finish off those 2 things and accomplish those 2 goals, then I'm truly telling myself that we're on a good track, okay? Despite all the injuries, despite Ellie Dela Cruz being on the IL, despite all the DFAs that we've done in recent weeks, this is a positive that the Reds could take to wrap up a homestands before they head out on the road to St. Louis and San Diego and keep us above 500. So it was a good win, a good collective win overall. And, the thing that I was thinking to myself out of this is this team is not going to go to the World Series. This team is not going to clinch a playoff berth. And this team is not going to contend in September with 2 or 3 guys carrying this team on their backs. So when you look at the Reds, I immediately, and it's just a natural habit, I turn my attention to Gino Suarez, Ellie Dela Cruz, and right now Chase Burns. They need to have the best outings every time they're out there on the field, and they need to produce at its absolute power. And if those 2 guys are performing, or if those 3 guys are performing, then this team is solid. That's not the mentality that this Reds team is honestly moving down. We won this game last night relying on our bottom half of this lineup that is truly just not performing as well, and they're the ones to secure a victory. Let me remind you, for Reds fans, we win collectively. The expectations are to perform as a collective unit. When one person slumps and is batting 190, 4 or 5 people are stepping up batting 250. And that goes for our middle of the lineup when when Stewart, when Suarez, when Lowe, when Cruz, when they are not, we want them to perform by all means. But if they do not perform, okay, it's okay. This is when some other guy like Benson or Steer or Dunn, they step up and they replace whoever is slumping. I think what shocks me the most, and maybe this is because how in depth I'm looking and I'm following this organization, but what has thrown me off guard the most this far this season has to be all the players that have been brought up, sent down, and designated for assignment. I understand it's typical, it's standard, but I feel like it's excessive. Wouldn't you agree? And what I see that is that sometimes the Reds could get away with bringing them back onto a minor league deal, but you end up losing guys, and we don't have many guys right now down in the minors. So yesterday on the first, on Monday, we saw Arroyo get called up. Brandon Limbrand get called, selected contract from Louisville. And then Marte, he gets designated for assignment. Back on Saturday, Richardson's contract gets called upon. Kyle Nicholas, who we picked up, gets designated for assignment. On yesterday, we saw Brandon Lambert and Lyon Richardson designated for assignment. Luis May. There's a lot of transactions. There's a lot of designated for assignments, and let's. I mean, maybe I'm not understanding this. So let me educate myself a little bit more here on our show because I want to give you so designated for assignment in MLB means that a player is immediately removed from the 40-man roster. Okay, which means someone has the team has to replace, and they have that team has 7-day window to make one of four moves. One, they could send the player to another team via a trade. Then they could place them on waivers, allowing other teams an opportunity to claim the player, which when you claim the player, you're claiming their contract. You can officially release the player, which means you'd pay out the remaining contract status, making them a free agent in baseball, or outright assignment, send the player down to the minor leagues. This next step of the DFA status depends on specific contracts and service time. For an example, a veteran player with more than 5 years of service can often refuse a minor league assignment and be elected free agency while he is keeping a guaranteed salary. So I just see a lot of the DFAs, and it's like, well, what are we? They're removing them from the 40-man roster, bring up somebody else. And it's not like we're getting players back. So for me, it's a little bit alarming because I've seen a lot of it happen for the Reds here early on, and we're only 2 months into it. But I just got to say that it's unsettling, especially when there's not a lot of guys that we go through to begin with. All right. Well, the Reds are back at it again tonight. The Rubber Game Series. First pitch available at 7:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Reds will be watched on Reds TV or listen to it on WLW. The Royals, 23-38. They are in fifth place of the American League Central. They'll go up against the 31-29 Reds, who are also in fifth place of the NL Central. We'll have right-handed pitcher Steven Kolak on the mound for the Royals. He's 3-1 with a 3.48 ERA. Kolak last pitched on last Friday on the 29th of May in Texas, where he went 5 innings, giving up 6 hits, 4 runs, 1 walk, and 5 strikeouts. The Reds will send out right-handed pitcher Chase Burns, who is scheduled and penciled in for tonight's start. Now, remember, Chase Burns was scheduled for Monday, was scratched because of an illness. It's great to see him back in there today. I know there was some speculations that he would. I said, let's maybe not rush it, but I'll tell you this, a series win will mean a lot heading on the road before we go to St. Louis this Friday. Well, Burns is 7-1. He's a 1.96 ERA. He last pitched on the 26th of May in New York. He went 5 1/3 of an inning, giving up 4 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, and 8 strikeouts. And to be honest, I mean, there's just no other pitcher right now in that rotation I'd want out there in this situation. Now, to be transparent, I would honestly rather watch him start the series off in St. Louis, having one of our better pitchers. But I love to see him out there in this Rubber Game Series. Like I said, the Reds have a chance to finish the series off with a victory, taking 2 out of 3 against the Royals. We will not see them later this season, but also finish off 500 today. Earlier this week, okay, before we move forward, we saw Edwin Arroyo make his first MLB debut on Monday as Ellie De La Cruz went down with a hamstring injury. And MLB.com, Mark Sheldon put a report of his caps of this wild day. Edwin is number three ranked prospect for the organization, and also hit his first MLB. Uh, uh, got his first hit in Major League Baseball on Monday as well. Um, it was a whirlwind of events as we learned midday on Monday that Ellie De La Cruz was going to be out. Louisville Bats were back at home with their day off, and infielder, shortstop Edwin Arroyo was a bit groggy, at least according to the statement here, at his apartment in Louisville. In a thrill entertaining big league clubhouse at Great America Ballpark with number two jersey hanging in his new locker. Arroyo said in this interview he was really excited that he was the goal for sure, but now the goal is to try to stay and help the team and just control what he can. Ahead of AAA Louisville's schedule, the road trip to Memphis, Arroyo, whose overall prospect was 98 and the Reds prospect number three, was just waking up Monday morning when that team's manager, Pat Kelly, called and to tell him that he was going to the big leagues. The all-star shortstop, Ellie De La Cruz, went down in a 10-day IL list due to a right hamstring strain. Kelly was like, whoa, if you want to go to the big leagues, you better answer the phone. I'm here now. And although the Reds lost, Royal struck out his first three times before lining his first pitch changeup for a single to right field off a reliever Eli Morgan. With two outs in the bottom of the ninth inning, Arroyo scored from the first base on McLean's RBI double to left field. Arroyo said after the game that it didn't start how he wanted it, but it finished how he wanted it. He also said it just made him more comfortable. He told Colin Cowgill kind of made him comfortable. He enjoyed it, so he's happy for that. It's I think it's great. Edwin Arroyo is a top tier player. We wanted to see him up in the major leagues. One of the question was where we were going to place him. I know Matt McLean is dealing with a little bit of soreness, and he's kind of banged up. We really don't have our second baseman, so if we brought him up, could he move over to third with Hayes out? Could he move over to second? Therefore, what do you do with McLean? Um, so it's great to finally see him in this lineup. It's great to see a young guy who has the energy, who has the aspirations of winning, is sometimes also motivating for the major league roster to see a young guy who's pumped up, energetic, ready to go, kind of give a little bit of life to a team that's being sucked out of life, right? I would like to see him stay up. I think as long as he holds his own, you give him his fair share. Does that mean someone else gets bumped down and, given up on an opportunity? Sure. But to be honest, this needs to be something that the Reds acquire with, especially if he does perform well. So, love to see Edwin called up earlier today, and we'll see more coming your way here later on. Just a brief update on the injury list. Graham Ashcraft expected not to expect it until the second half of the season. Second opinion confirmed. Dr. Keith Meester confirmed a UCL sprain. He's receiving PRP injections as of June 2nd. Diagnosed Ellie De La Cruz mid to late June. Expectation of returning. Jose Trevino expected to return later this week. Began rehab assignment at AAA Louisville on June 4th, which will be tomorrow, and will play 3 games expected. Pierce Johnson mid June. MRI shows no serious damage. and Johnson received cortisone injections. June or July, still on the pathway for Emilio. Second MRI exam on May 29th showed 50-60% healing. Brandon Williamson, second half. Hunter Green, July. It's important that, Rhett Lauder, face hitters in live BP on May 27th through 45 pitches on the way back to um, 70 pitches. Hopefully to see him sometime this month, maybe next month as well. So it's great we got to see these players back. All right, what's going on in the National League Central? Last night, the Milwaukee Brewers beat the San Francisco Giants 8-3 final score. On last night's ball game, the Rangers beat the Cardinals 7-4. The Cubs lost to the Athletics 2-1, and the Pirates beat the Astros 10-6 as the race of the NL Central continues to climb. Milwaukee 37-21 will take on the Giants again tonight. First pitch 7:40. Cardinals 31-28 will have Andre Palante on the mound against the Rangers at first pitch 7:45. On 8:05 tonight, the Cubs and Athletics. The Cubs are 32-29. We'll have Colin Ray on the mound. And at 8:10, the Pirates on the road against Houston. The Pirates are 33-28 with Paul Skeens on the mound. That is your NL Central update. Over in the Stanley Cup playoffs last night, the Vegas Golden Knights beat the Carolina Hurricanes. Final score 4-2. They get out to an early 1-0 lead as they have today off. The next game will be Thursday, June 4th. Puck drops at 8 p.m. Available on ABC. On the other side of news, the NBA Finals begins tonight as the New York Knicks would be on the road in San Antonio to take on the Spurs. Game 1 of a best-of-7 game series begins tonight. Tip-off at 8:30, available on ABC. For more information about playoffs, you can check out cbssports.com. I believe that I like the Knicks. Knicks have been associated with the WWE, Danhausen, lifting this curse. Can they overcome? And I think, you know what? When you've had some tough battles with San Antonio, they didn't get out of. They went to Game 7 with the Oklahoma City Thunder. For me, this late into the season, I see an opportunity. I just see people getting drained at this stage. You've already had some lengthy series. Do you have the inner gripe to continue that? Um, or does even the amount of days off that the Knicks have after going 4-0 shutout in the Eastern Conference, does that have an effect? For me, I think the Knicks have a better chance at winning the NBA Finals, which will be huge, but we'll see. Who do you guys have winning this year's NBA Finals? All right, back in Major League Baseball. I know it's a little too early, or about 2 months away, but it's never too early to start sharing teams who have the idea of possibly trading players. So here's a couple of names that come to mind when it comes to trading players this year. First one has to be Tigers starting left-handed pitcher Tariq Skubal. I feel like that's going to be the indication. I know he had his surgery, nanoscope elbow surgery. We're supposed to return some point this month. It may be important. The Tigers haven't done what they were hoped to do this season. The whole dynamic of signing Justin Verlander and signing Framber Valdez and, to team up with Tariq Skubal was because they had a legitimate shot at the AL Central. 24-38 as of today. They're in fourth place, and they are 11 games back with the Cleveland Guardians. Not only that, they find themselves just 6.5 games back of a wild card position. So they're not necessarily out of the postseason opportunity, but time's creeping up. And with the trade deadline here, one of the big questions is what do you do with the 2.70 ERA of Tariq Skubal? And now with his injury, you have a major decision. Either he's going to hit free agent next year, or and you're gonna lose out. Or you try to get blue chip market value for him at the trade deadline, maybe some prospects. And if you do that, now I think the Tigers are backed in the corner. Because of his injury, I'm interested to see what the value of him heading into the trade deadline and who will spend. Well, can the Tigers make that run? And even if they're in a run come July, who could help be consistent with this team? Possible landing spots for Tariq throws in names teams like the Braves, the Blue Jays, the Cubs, the Dodgers for everything, even the Padres and Yankees. If the Tigers are smart, they'll pay down some or all of his $9 million or so that they still owe him at the deadline to improve a return and get some teams involved. In this more smaller market case, if they eat up a lot of his contract, you can look into the Athletics, the Brewers, the Rays could also make a run at him. I would love to throw the the Reds in here. That's just not a possibility. And with the Dodgers, they have so many prospects. Name anybody, they're not going to be phased. Up next is Freddie Peralta, right-handed pitcher for the Mets, picked up just before spring training, again a trade with the Milwaukee Brewers. The New York Mets, I'll be honest, 26 and 35, 15 back in the division, did not have things turn out the way they did. They felt like they made a lateral move. Well, last year's failures moved over. It's frustrating, but the fact that Peralta would be owed less than $3 million at the deadline will make him appealing offer compared to Scrooper. What about Sandy Alcantara, right-handed pitcher for the Marlins? He's pitched 75 innings thus far this season, 4.66 ERA. The Mets also find themselves at the bottom of the NL East, 28-34, 13 and a half games back. The trade value goes down from here as the Marlins fringe as a contender here late in the season. Trade him at the deadline, and his new team gets him for 2 postseasons. Wait until the offseason next year, trade deadline, assuming that his $21 million club option for 2027 doesn't get picked up. You only get 1 postseason for Alcantara. So you trade him now, get higher value. What team's willing to trade? I would love it, and this is just highlighted for me. I would love to throw in the idea that the Reds would be interested in this one. Who could you give up? We'll talk about that in a moment. I think that would be a great addition. Even a Brady Singer, possibly, right? Ryan Jeffers, a catcher for the Twins. He's only batting 295. I would throw in, honestly, this name. We're struggling at catchers. Jose Trevino's out there on the IL. Why not? We had Taylor Ward. We need an outfielder. He's batting 254. Robbie Ray from the Giants with the 4.60 ERA. I would throw him in that mix as well. Antonio Sentenza, who's a bullpen pitcher, which we definitely need help on. So I only see the names. I don't see the Reds associated with anybody. One, we need help in the outfielders. Okay. So, and the Dodgers are stacked up. Do we go out there and try to make a deal with the Dodgers to pick up a prospect to help us out in the outfield? Okay. Earlier this week, Nick Crawl mentioned a possible, what can, about the trade deadline. Now, it's a little too soon, but Nick Crawl responds to the Reds, asked about the trade deadline, and he says yes, it needs to be attention. He doesn't have any information about what they're going to do, but he does acknowledge that something has to be done. I was looking at some of the list. I like the idea of Antonio Senzatella, who's a relief pitcher from the Rockies. He's a right-handed pitcher from the bullpen, and we can definitely use help in the bullpen, whether it's a long-term, short-term deal, whether it prevents someone coming back from injury. Robbie Ray is a starting pitcher. Um, there are selective guys that I think we need to focus on maybe gravitating to, not just focus on one person, but the possibility of the next 3 to 4 people. And the reason I say that is because we need help in the outfield. That's given. I don't know if there's any one value of that's a power hitting guy, but we need help. The second thing is that we need help in our bullpen, regardless when Hunter Green comes back and if Rhett Lauder comes back and Brandon Williamson comes back. The fact of the matter is that these pitchers could go 6, 7 innings, shutout innings, and it's all for nothing unless we can sit here and have our bullpen shutout game. There are good days and there are bad days. Now you ask, well, maybe who can we start throwing in as possible trade pieces? I hate to throw it, but Brady Singer eats up a lot of innings or a lot of that payroll. Almost what, $12 million. I can almost presume that I would be hesitant to be open to the options of throwing a Brady Singer in the conversation if we could pick up someone more consistent and a better impact. Just think of this. Sandy Alcantara has 2 years left. Not this year, but next season, especially if we could muster a way to be in a contingency. If not, he's also a good trade piece this offseason, especially for teams who's looking to make a playoff run next year. Also, Noel V. Marte. Now, I know Noel V. Marte is performing quite well down in AAA, and I like to see that continue. But let's be honest with each other. He didn't cut it at the major league levels, or else he wouldn't be down there right now. And the trouble that I have with it, I feel like we're at the point where we're ready to move on. So if we build him up in AAA, move him. Earlier this year, we moved CES, Christian Encarnacion Strand. So, I know there's a lot of players that aren't performing the way we want to. We're seeing the Reds go through that right away. And what's happening is that we're having less guys to rely on, which means there's less guys that we're confident in. But if we can, guess what? Put him at the trade market, trade him if we're giving up on him, or if he's not performing, and let's move on. Rip off the band aid and let's move forward. Who would you guys have on the trade market this year? Matt McLean. I don't think I wouldn't want to get rid of Nathaniel Lowe. Will Benson possibly? TJ Friedel could be a link in that source. The options are open. All right. Sources report in the gaming world that Chicago Bears quarterback Caleb Williams is set to be on the cover of this year's Madden 27 football game. Confirmation of this schedule will be scheduled for June 4th, which is this Thursday, tomorrow at 8 p.m. It will be available on YouTube. Also, the other thing is that the Bengals and Bears has been announced that they will be holding joint practice this preseason ahead of their preseason game. Well, all right. So I do want to throw in a Bengals conversation here. You know what? Due to the time, I am going to actually hold this conversation for tomorrow. There was a conversation I wanted to have about the Bengals calling their shots for this year's Super Bowl. We could actually open up tomorrow's show about that because I want to get into our final segment of this program, and that's relations to Raw last night or back on Monday, where we saw Jacob Fatu acknowledging Roman Reigns as he joins the bloodline. Jacob Fatu had this moment earlier this year defeating Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania, challenging not just for the World Heavyweight Championship, but as the head of the table in the family. And it's come up short not once, but twice. Roman Reigns had to claw and had to fight his way through. Oh, lovely. Oh, 1 second. 'I don't know what it was. I just had something crawl up my leg, and I think it's a spider. I don't know. We'll find out. I just put a trash can over it for now, so it doesn't happen again. Gosh, uh, out here we get centipedes and whatnot. So, so I apologize about that. But all right. So Jacob Fatu not once but twice he fell, and Roman Reigns had to step up. And so, what I appreciate what happened earlier this over the weekend was that Roman Reigns beat Jacob Fatu cleanly, not cleanly, but without any outside interference. Didn't have any family members get involved. Didn't have, any help. And he was able to beat him, which to me was important because Jacob Fatu really challenged Roman Reigns earlier at Backlash and posed a threat to the point where, look, Roman Reigns had to use the exposed turnbuckle and a distraction of the referee to pick up the victory. So Roman Reigns did, officially prove to me in Clash in Italy that he was still better than, Jacob Fatu by beating him without any outside interference. Now, I understand that that there is a part of this that says, you know what, this chapter closed on Jacob Fatu. The WWE may have missed an opportunity, for Jacob Fatu and a change of narrative perception of the bloodline. But what this tells me, I really believe this just opens another chapter. And maybe we put a pin on it. As much, maybe this was a short test for Jacob Fatu and to see where he actually stands, not just among the family, but in this mix. And right now, although Jacob Fatu lost not one, but twice against Roman Reigns over the last 3 months, Jacob Fatu has definitely earned my respect. It looks like he's earned Roman Reigns' respect. And he looks like he is still elevated in power moving forward. Now, Roman Reigns, who didn't want Jacob Fatu in the picture, has had to physically go through Jacob to get him on his side. So Roman Reigns wanted to stay as far away as Jacob Fatu because he knew what he was capable of, and he saw that at Backlash. Roman Reigns then buckled his laces up to beat him to prove that where he fell in line. Where does Jacob Fatu follow in line? He's not better than Roman Reigns, but he's better than Solo Sikoa, who's on the outside looking at the family when he should be in the family. And to be honest, Jacob's better than Jimmy and Jey Uso. Now, as a unit, I think that this is just honestly uh, a sign. This is like a locker room warning that the bloodline just added a new fierce talent to their roster. But, this is, I don't know what's next. To me, in the back of my mind, and this is just what's lingering. I see Jacob getting into this feud now with Solo Sikoa, with Royce Keys, and with MFTs. Especially with the appearance of MFT after Backlash. There are some talents right now that can go toe to toe with everybody. Not many, but everybody in the bloodline. And that's only going to carry out so far. So Roman Reigns beats Jacob Fatu. Jacob Fatu takes his place in line, which is still pretty high up there, acknowledges the tribal chief, stands behind "We are number one," and now heading into Riyadh, heading into SummerSlam, heading into Money in the Bank, the bloodline is not only reformed, but they have just strengthened themselves after this family battle for the last 2 months. And now they oppose a threat to anyone and everyone in that locker room. I am intrigued to see how they use Jacob Fatu, how Roman Reigns uses him. It's a clear indication. I don't think Roman Reigns, wants to keep Jet Fatu on a leash. We'll see how far that leash goes. The Usos hasn't done much since rejoining. So what's next? But it is a dangerous position for everyone else on the roster saying, look, we're here. You want to step up, step up. Back it up. We are going to dethrone you. You step up again, and we're going to take you out the hard way. That's what I take out of it. I don't know. Let me know down in the comments. A good show, a good show. We'll talk about the Bengals football tomorrow, a part of our conversations we did not get to today. We will get you, hopefully we have a better news. The Reds walk away with the series victory tonight with a victory. Chase Burns on the mound. We're getting ready for FIFA World Cup, which is next Thursday kickoff officially here, almost a week away. Exciting, right? And then just after 4th of July, we have ourselves basically a season, preseason. Camp goes back out. Love to see it. A lot of great action. That is all the time we have for you guys here on today's episode. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Have those notifications on so you don't miss a single episode. You can also follow us on our social media platforms. We're on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also download this episode and take us on the road. Wherever you go, don't miss a single episode of the TNC Sports Talk. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spreaker. It helps us out if you could be able to listen to us and get involved in the conversation as well. But that is all the time I have for you guys here today. Thank you guys for tuning into the TNC Sports Talk. My name is Justin. And until tomorrow, we'll be back tomorrow, noon to 1. So thanks for watching. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Stay cool out there and have a nice rest of your day. Take care.